All right, welcome back to another episode of Realty Resilience. I'm your host, Dave Nations, and also the founder of Nations Network, powered by Keller Williams Realty. Really excited about our podcast today. I've got a wonderful guest. Her name is Lisa Magee. Welcome, Lisa. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. Lisa and I have worked together now for, we're going on 10 years?
Yeah, 10 years this coming November.
Yes. You know what? I just realized something. Yeah, no, the 10 years. That's crazy, isn't it? So we've been working together for 10 years, but before we get into all things real estate, if you wouldn't mind, first share with the audience what you were doing prior to getting into real estate.
Of course. So prior to real estate, my background, my education is in education. I was an early childhood special education teacher. I taught for a few years, and then I decided I wanted to stay home with my kids. That lasted all of 3 months. So then I got into retail and worked my way up into retail management, worked at Bath & Body Works. I was doing training as well as doing floor sets where you go in and the store looks completely different the next day versus the next day when they roll out new products.
So you went in and revamped it all?
Yep. And then I coordinated all the people of moving all of the merchandise to get it where it goes.
Okay.
And then I worked at Old Navy for about a year and then took my real estate test and met with you guys and joined the team that November.
Yeah. And so working in retail, I feel like had to be a really good lead up into real estate. What kind of hours did you work in retail?
Oh my gosh, it was insane. I will never forget. We had a group interview with the team and I had been up since 3 a.m. and we had a lunch meeting. I know.
Oh yeah, I do remember this.
And because we had changed everything in the store. And so I went and worked a full 8-hour shift and then went to the interview with the team and then went home and took a nap before my kids got home from school. It was crazy.
It's impressive.
I know. But I mean, you work holidays, you work at
nights, obviously,
nights,
weekends.
You work all the time. Holidays are crazy. Like, I don't think I had a holiday home with my family on Thanksgiving for 10 years prior to being in real estate.
Because you were setting up for the big day the next day.
Or you were working in the mall for that day. Because when the stores open at midnight, people have to be there before midnight to open the stores.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So how many years did you say you went without being at home for holidays?
I would say for at least parts of Christmas and Thanksgiving and even Mother's Day, Easter. I worked at Old Navy on Easter. So, yeah, it's crazy. I wanted that, as the old saying goes with real estate, like you want the flexibility. And it's not necessarily the flexibility. It's the power to say no and determine your schedule that is appealing.
I like that. And so what's crazy to me is that you were doing that, and I think it's a great background to then train you and get you right into real estate. Because when you start in real estate, you still don't get, just because now I have my real estate license doesn't mean I get to tell people yes or no on my schedule.
Yes.
Right. If I don't have any business, I'm not telling anybody yes or no. And in my opinion, tell me if I'm wrong, but you're kind of working whenever to get it going and just, kind of get the wheels turning, right? Yeah. And if somebody needs me on a Saturday at 7 or Sunday morning at 8 a.m. to show a house, whatever it is, like you're kind of doing it, right?
Yeah. And you're driving everywhere all over God's green earth. Like you're driving.
Want to go to Forestville? I'm going to Forestville. We're going to Florissant. We're going to where it doesn't matter.
You're just going
the business
wherever the business brings you. And the interesting thing now is like I'm seeing as clients are coming back, I'm getting some of those like spot things popping up where I'll have a client that'll be way out in Troy. Oh, okay. And then I'll have one down in Festus and I'll be like, do I really want to drive that far? And I'm like, oh, but they're a past client because I was driving all over.
Yeah. And as you've been able to grow, you've been able to be more specific on where you want to work, how you want to work, who you want to work with, right? And all of those things. And so one of the things, the biggest thing I really want to dive into with Lisa is her level of discipline and consistency. So for those of you that don't know Lisa, isn't on paper wired as a salesperson, right? But she just shared with me that she just closed her 386th deal since she's been in the business. So while she may not be a salesperson, she's killing it, right? I mean, selling 386 houses, congrats, that's amazing.
Thanks.
But your consistency and your discipline, in my opinion, is what sets you apart from all the other agents that are out there. When you started, do you remember, first couple of years, how many deals were you closing those first couple of years? Kind of walk us through what that looked like.
Yeah. So the first year, I believe I sold 28 houses. The next year was 24. And then it took a few years to build that up. And it really got back to the activities of what I was doing. So at that point in time, I was doing a lot of open houses, which I also leaned into a lot of door knocking. And I did a lot of area prospecting. So it would take me 300, 400 calls to get an appointment. Like it was
in the early days.
In the early days, it's insane. And so
And what's crazy is that you were tracking it, right?
Yeah.
So you knew that though. So how does that actually help your mindset? Knowing like I have to make 300 calls to get an appointment. I think most people who are probably listening to this are going, nope, I'm out.
Yeah.
Right.
But
here you are, 10 years later.
I used to track, like when I was cold calling people, I would track how many people would hang up on me. And I would be like, all right, I got to 10. Woohoo! Great day.
If you talked to 300 or called 300 people, how many people would hang up on you out of 300?
Out of 300, probably anywhere between 10 to 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, at least you got them on the phone.
Right. And then I learned the patterns. So for me, it's all about learning like whatever the patterns are, whatever those things are. So then I know I can predict it. So I can say, all right, I can keep going if I know it's going to take 25 phone calls to set an appointment.
That's why tracking was so important.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So then today, it doesn't take you 300 or 400 calls to get an appointment. What does it take you today?
39.
Okay. And what happened over that time frame that you went from 400 to 39 to get an appointment?
A lot of practice. I mean, it gets back to that old philosophy that the pot, I always think of the pot maker and the assignment where that professor gave them, they had two groups. One group had to build as many pots and create as many clay pots as they possibly could. And then there was one group that they had to make one pot and it had to be absolutely the best. You learn so much faster what works for your style, what works for your personality. And as you keep doing it over and over and over again, yes, you're failing. Yes, there's times where like I would be talking to people and I would be like, oh, that was a stupid question. But it also like, once you ask enough stupid questions, you're like, yeah, no, that's not getting me the results I want. So I need to figure out a different way to word this question to get the results faster.
I love that. I like that pot analogy. That's really good. You're right. I mean, the more deals you're doing, the more you're learning. And we know in this business, no deal is the same. So while you've done 386 of them, they're all 386 different deals. So it doesn't mean you just all of a sudden they're all the same and they're that simple. It's having to maneuver the personalities, the people, the deal, the other agent, the inspections, like all the moving parts along the way. But you're learning every single time and taking little nuggets, right? And knowing, okay, well, that didn't work this time. Let's try it this way. Let's do this Okay.
Well, and the other big element to it is that I also had to, because my natural personality is not such that I'm going to be like, oh, it's just going to slide right off my back. That's not going to bother me. I'm the type of person that I'm going to absorb like anything negative or anything that's going on. And I always want to fix everything. Like that gets back to me wanting to be that helper, that not typical sales agent person.
Well, that fixing everything is still a great trait in this, right? When the stuff hits the fan, you're not going, all right, well, next deal, you're going to go, well, how do I work through this and how do we get it to the finish line still, if it's possible, right? Before I go to that mutual release form, what can we do to work through that? So I think that's still a great trait that you want to do that. However, it's probably the more just carrying it on your shoulders all the time. How do you still do that? How'd you work through that?
Sometimes I sound like a goofball. Like I will physically say out loud, like I am not responsible for somebody's response. Like because when you're giving people difficult information, because real estate is emotional. Like as much as we know what's happening, the people on the other side, they don't know what's happening. Yeah. And so we have to remind ourselves, like, this is the first time they've done this. This is the first time we've been in this situation with these people. And so we have to be very cognizant of that and remember that, like, I'm not responsible for their emotions. I'm not responsible for how they react. I'm responsible for conveying the information and making sure that I'm not putting emotion into how I'm explaining something to somebody.
Yeah, I think that's a key component there.
Super important, because it makes it easier to keep moving forward, and it takes something that could blow up and be a massive problem and really makes it like, okay, this is what's happening. And I really don't call clients and talk to them if I don't have 2 or 3 options as solutions before I call them, because I don't want to pick up the phone and be like, I don't know what we're doing. Like, we're not doing that. That's not going to work.
Well, you are
for
a real
anybody.
estate advisor is what we call them, right?
Correct.
So, if you don't have anything to advise on, it's like,
Yeah.
But I want to touch real quick on that emotional piece, that if you show up and you're very emotional about that situation, chances are they are too, because if
Correct.
if they see how you're reacting, and so if you're upset, then they get upset. If
Yeah.
you see you show up and you're like, yeah, this happened, but it's fine, because in your mind it's happened before. Even if it hasn't, you act like it's happened before. It really does calm, and,
Yes.
it honestly makes your job easier. When
Right.
you overreact, they'll overreact, and then you're trying to handle their emotions and handle the situation.
Yeah.
So that's great. So I want to go back to something you had said, when we were talking about the 400 contacts to now to 39, and
Yeah.
you really spent the time training. What did that look like for you? Are you still doing training? Are you still really working on how do I go from 39 to 20 or whatever that
Yeah.
is for you? And what was the daily routine, if there was one? But if I'm out there and I'm a single agent, I'm a newer agent, or even have a small team, whatever that looks like for me, and I'm, doing my 20 to 30 deals, but I want to get to 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, whatever it is, right? Besides leverage, what you're talking about is totally different than that, right? It's
Right.
really the skills of what I need to be doing to be a good realtor. So what did that look like for you? What does it look like now? So
Yeah.
both of those.
So I would say you want to lean into bigger trainings. So things like I think of family reunion or mega camp, like big.
Which are 2 big Keller Williams conferences that we
Correct.
have, each year. So okay.
Correct. So the bigger scale things, because then you can get exposed and get different ideas from different markets. I always take pieces from each one and find taking it down to the top 5 to 7 things that I can implement right away from those. One of the things that I took from those way back when was adding 2 leads to my database from every open house.
Okay.
That can be from door knocking. That can be from
Sign call.
That could
Text
be, it could be anything. It could be from people physically walking through the open house, because we've noticed at open houses, there's less and less people that don't have an agent. So if you are focused on all of the activities to find buyers, to find new clients, and your focus is 2 a week, what does your database look like at that point in time?
Yeah.
So,
So you're doing the big trainings.
so
Go
doing
to
the
1
big
or 2 of those a year.
and then also doing little trainings. So little trainings meaning in office activities. So if the office has
brings in a guest speaker on
guest
listing
speaker,
presentations
yep,
or
I go to
social
those.
media. Or,
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and then also our team does script practice in the mornings where we practice conversations. Really now for me, it's not necessarily knowing the entire conversation that I'm going to have with a seller when we're sitting down at the table. It's not necessarily going to be me actively practicing what that buyer conversation is going to look like over and over again. It's really me practicing the questions that are going to help them figure out what they're doing. So really I know the meat and potatoes of it. It's just figuring out what the seasoning is that goes on top of it.
And so in your mind, it's really the questions are what gets the clients to
Correct.
sign your buyer agreement or your listing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not you coming in and saying, okay, here's all the things, here's what you need to do, sign here.
Yeah, because now when I sit down with clients at the table, listings, I'm not even opening the packets or the materials that I brought. I'm sitting there and we're just having a conversation. And they're already saying yes before we even go through any of the information, before we talk about any pricing strategy, any of that. They've already said yes because I've made it about them and what's most important about them. And we've talked through solutions. So they feel comfortable with me. They trust me faster because I'm asking the right questions.
I like that. Okay, so the training has been a big component, and you've done that consistently in hitting the big trainings, office trainings, role playing daily.
Yeah.
So that's been a big component to helping you with the consistency and the discipline for your business. What's next? I know maybe we dive into your schedule. I know you're very big on how you run your day to day.
Yeah, and so the schedule, I firmly believe that the schedule gets down to how you set yourself up every week. So I create my schedule. Ideally, I create it at the end of the day on Thursday when I wrap up all of my other weekly tracking and all of those type of things, when I complete my 411, all of that. I then, because my 411 is fresh in my mind, I then use that, see what activities I need to complete for this week, so then I can then map it out and make sure it's all on my calendar. So my days typically are going to have time set aside for lead generation, and it's usually going to be around 2 hours. Some days I can do another session and have another 2 to 3 hours. Usually for me, the way
2 hours a day?
2 hours a day.
Are you morning, afternoon, night? Does it matter? Does it kind of fluctuate throughout the week? Or are you 9 to 11 every single day, no matter what type of person?
I'm not a 9 to 11 every single day. I need lead gen every day. I don't need it to be the same time every day. I found when I first started creating my schedule, and I would make it every single time, and I just set my schedule as like an automatic set it and forget it and never readjust.
Stick to it?
I didn't. I would be like, oh, no, this isn't going to work for me. So once I changed the method of how I set my schedule up, it makes me more aware of it. So then I'm more likely to do it.
Okay.
I mean, way back when, and I don't even remember who said this to me. Someone told me, like, this job is super easy. All you have to do every single day is open your CRM, make sure everybody's on like a systemized plan that's going to tell you what to do every day, and you just do those phone calls.
I probably told you that. I'm just kidding.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I was like, okay, I can do that. So like that is literally what I do.
But that is it.
Right. And it's not boring. It's not fancy.
I got to go find the people to put into the CRM to put on the auto plans to follow up with. Sure. There's that front end, but that's what you're doing when you're doing your lead gen, right?
And for me, it's not really about like saying, okay, I'm going to rush. I'm going to have a big event and I'm going to gather like 50 names and put all these people in there. That is not my jam. My jam is like, all right, I'm going to do 2 to 5 people added every single week. And I know that over time.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Yep. Right? I am the turtle.
Yeah. Okay. I am the turtle. I am the walrus. No.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, I'm going to say cuckoo, cuckoo. Anyways. Okay, so your schedule, and you follow that. Anything else on the schedule that is important that you want to share on what that looks like? I mean, so there's the lead gen portion, but then is there anything else? Do you time block off? Do you have spots already open for when you're showing houses, when you're going on appointments? Do you have set hours that you work, from in the morning at night? How does that look?
Yeah. So I have leverage that helps with showings. So as of right now, that leverage is doing the showings for me. So I use that time to do additional lead gen activities. When I was doing the showings myself, I would block out time in the evenings for showings at least 2 to 3 nights a week. Now, the life cycle of when houses come on right now, like most houses are coming on Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. Showings start Fridays, Saturdays. So like most of your showings for those hot commodities are happening on the weekends.
Yeah, your schedule's already created.
Correct.
Right?
You don't have a choice.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday kind of thing.
You do not have a choice. So in that component, I'm saving that for then. I have really come to enjoy using the Do Not Disturb function on my phone.
Okay.
So that
when does that go on?
That goes on when I'm making phone calls, so that people do not call me. Because
so, like when you're making phone calls, you're talking like when you're doing lead gen, you have your Do Not Disturb on, so no one is then. So, but if you call people, how do they get when they call you back?
Well, I will, once I finish doing all my outbound calls, then I'll turn off the Do Not Disturb, see if anybody call me back, and then I'll call them back. Okay.
I like that. But I just say that because I feel like people are going to go, well, what if they call me back? I want to answer that. But you're, again, disciplined that like, no, I'm going to get through all of these calls. This is what my CRM says I have to do today. I'm going to do that.
Well, and I do the same thing for when I'm in meetings. So like if I'm meeting with Jim, our director of sales, I'm turning my phone on Do Not Disturb because I want to give him the same attention and focus because I'm talking about my business. It's the same thing I'm going to do if I'm lead generating because I'm focused on my business.
Do Not Disturb at your listing and buyer appointments as well?
Yes.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
That's great. Again, there's myself included. That's like, I don't know if I can go without knowing if somebody's calling or texting, but it makes so much sense, right? And you're laser focused. You're not getting distracted, on whatever that is. So,
well, I mean, how do you feel when you're like if you're interacting with someone and they're doing that, or they're on their phone, like, how much do you trust them? How do you feel emotionally? Like, how are you connected to them? Because it's just breaking that connection. It's rude.
And what I think you're also doing, I don't know if you've probably already realized this, but you're also training them how you want to be treated.
Correct.
Right? Because you're not pulling out your phone and saying, hey, hang on, or any of that kind of stuff. You're showing up in a certain manner and expecting that they do the same, right? So that's awesome.
When I sit down in appointments, I purposefully will sit there and I will put my phone on Do Not Disturb so they can see.
Now, do you say that? You're saying
I said,
that
yeah,
to them,
I'm putting my phone on Do Not Disturb, and then I stick it in my bag.
I like that.
Because I want them to know that they have my full attention.
Okay. So we've gotten through the training, gone through scheduling, right? What's next? What about, when you're working your database and how you're following up? You're the queen of follow-up. I think the longest I know is at least 5 years of follow-up before you converted somebody.
Yes,
but you stuck with them for 5 years. There are people that won't last 5 minutes following up with somebody, and you spent 5 years following up with them, and then they came around.
You know what's cool is I set an appointment with a new client this week. We set a buyer appointment and a seller appointment. They're planning to move. So she was a referral from a client who bought and sold a house in 2020. Okay. And I originally met them at an open house in 2016. So wow.
So you're talking 9 years.
9 years
had
of
a
checking
connection.
In with them.
Have you been checking in since 2016?
Yeah. I was checking in with them that whole time, but not the referral, but checking in with the original clients. And then now she referred her sister to me. Like, it's not hard. It's just boring.
You have to have the plan to be able to follow.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, again, as most agents are, they're just all over the map all the time. And, the sticky notes and just kind of, as I keep saying, they're flying by the seat of their pants, right? And just figuring out. That is the farthest thing from the truth for you. Yeah. You were certainly not. I think it is incredible how you're just so diligent with what your day looks like and just rinse and repeat, and it just keeps working. So, okay, how are you staying on top of these people? 5 years, 9 years, whatever, and following up with them. What's the secret?
It's literally calling and texting them and checking in.
Don't you feel like you're being annoying? Right?
No.
That's the question you hear a lot of. What are you saying to them? What are you going to talk about?
I will say, probably half of my interactions with them are not necessarily real estate related. It's like, how's your family? How are the kids? What's new? Even sometimes it's, hey, I drove past your house and your Christmas lights look amazing. Those type of things, that makes them feel good and it makes them feel seen. And to keep the relationship going, that's what you have to do.
Another thing that you do really consistently, I don't know how many years you've been doing it now, but you've been farming your neighborhood, right? And you're in Brentwood, Missouri, and I know you started it at 200 or 300 homes and you've just recently expanded it. Yep. But do you remember what year you started farming?
I want to say it was 4 years ago.
Okay, so 2021.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, because in 2019, so going backwards up until 2019, the fall of 2019, I was exclusively a buyer's agent. I did not work with listings. And then I remember sitting down with you and Jim, and you guys were like, hey, I really think you should, we want to offer you guys the opportunity to be able to operate both sides. Yeah.
And you didn't want to at first.
And I didn't want to do it. I was like, oh, nope, I'm not good with that. And that's not going to work, which is fascinating now because my business is 50-50 listings and buyers. So,
and would you agree that it makes you probably a more well-rounded agent, being able to know how to do the listing side just as good as the buy side?
I do actually think I'm probably I'm going to toot my own horn. I think I'm a better listing agent. Yeah, because I know what it's like when you're a buyer's agent and you're reaching out to these listing agents and they're not answering the phone. They're not putting all the details and all the information in the remarks and all this stuff.
You're learning from your deals and going, this is what I want to do and be a better listing agent because my experiences were this and that was tough for me as a buyer's agent.
Yes.
So just like you talked about in the beginning of this,
right?
So
awesome. So at that point in time, I started to be able to do both. And then that following...
So 2021 we started.
We started the farm.
How many houses do you happen to know? How many houses we closed in 2021 in Brentwood in your farm? And maybe none. I don't actually know the answer. I don't know if you know.
I would say it's probably a handful, probably 3 or 4. Okay. Because when I think of... So my farming strategy is more of multifaceted type of endeavor. It's not just the traditional geographic farming where you're just sending mailers. I'm doing things where I'm in person.
And I think you need this, right? I think the real estate world has evolved that just dropping a postcard every 2 weeks or every month to the houses over and over again. Anything. It might, but I think it also takes longer, right? Like when I first started in this and heard farming, everyone's like 24 months. That's 2 years. So then that means you wouldn't have sold a house till 2023 in your farm, which we know isn't the case. Right. So you added in these other layers to that. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I also add in all of my volunteer efforts that I do at school, which I would do anyway with my family and my kids. And then I also added in online presence type of thing. So making sure I do at least 2 short form videos and then making sure a week and then doing at least 1 to 2 long form videos a month.
You also leverage the neighborhood, the community Facebook group, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I use the community Facebook group. I also will leverage community events. So a blood drive or the Brentwood Days Parade and all of those.
I have to say though, when 2 things. One, when you're on the Facebook group, it's pretty cool to have seen how evolved your business has gotten in Brentwood. When somebody asked for a realtor in Brentwood, early days it was a mix of people. Yeah. Now it's just Lisa.
Yeah,
right?
It's insane.
And then maybe one person, then Lisa. The other thing I will say that's fun is going on the Brentwood Days Parade. And Lisa's like the queen of Brentwood at the parade. It's pretty cool. And again, it's all the efforts that you're talking about right now. And again, the consistency and discipline you have put into working this. So, I mean, how often do you door knock? Your farm, right? You've done that over the years too.
So my goal is always to door knock the farm at least twice a year.
Okay. How many houses was in the farm and how many are in it now?
So I started off with the farm being at 250 houses. Okay. And it is where I live, which that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. A lot of people. It's close by.
Yep. And also I know if the mailers or those things get out like that. Also helps. And now I think we're at 867.
Now, will you door knock all 867 houses?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm working with our marketing director, Rachel, to redesign some door hangers and do some new elements. But most of my marketing, most of the elements that I do for the farm, it's kind of a rinse and repeat. It's not fancy. It's really okay, this is the order of the message that we want. This is what it's going to look like. And we don't want that to change very often. We want them to just see me on Facebook, see me in their mailbox, see me in person, see
your signs,
see my signs, see all of that and be oh, Lisa, Lisa's selling a lot in Brentwood. Oh my goodness, what is happening? Kind of a thing.
Yeah. What are the postcards that you're sending out saying, speaking of Lisa sells a lot in Brentwood?
So
do they say that or are there other things?
Yeah. So we also do, once we sell a house, we'll do every door direct EDDM through the United States Post Office. It's a little bit cheaper than other methods of mailing. And we'll send those out to the mail route around the house that's sold. But because Brentwood is only 1 square mile, it frequently overlaps when you're selling on different sides and different parts of the neighborhood. So, yeah, the message is...
people accidentally hear about you, right?
Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, it's really stats, and then I partner with a lender on that. So I usually do a lender message every 3 to 4 postcards. They get that privilege, and then it'll be just sold. It'll be thank you for participating in the blood drive, or join us at the blood drive, or it could be, hey, we've got the Brentwood Days Parade. It's a variety. Sometimes it's, hey, check out my Brentwood business spotlights.
Talk about that. That's not something you've mentioned yet. Your business spotlights in Brentwood.
So every month I interview a different business in Brentwood, and sometimes they're small businesses or medium businesses. Very rarely are they larger franchises, but I go and it's a 2 to 5 minute interview where I get to spotlight that business, and then I tag them on all the social media channels. So then I'm getting their customer base and they're getting our customer base to be able to cross brand to each other.
Do you feel that that's been beneficial for you? Do you feel that's beneficial for them?
Yeah.
Are the conversations to get these set up fairly easy, or business owners why would I do this? What's that
Some
look like?
do. A lot of them, surprisingly enough, will ask me how much does this cost? And I'm no, it's free. It's completely free. I just need like 10 minutes of your time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Free advertising. And then you post it and put it out there, and then they get to learn about whatever that business is, right? And, hopefully you drive some business to them, and, hopefully it comes back to you too, right?
Yeah, totally. And the cool thing is that I then post it on the Brentwood community page, so then we get more engagement there, and people see that. And it always makes me feel good when I'm like posting my end of the month closings, and you can see that I've got closings in Brentwood. At the same time, you can see that like, hey, I also interviewed this really cool business at the same time. Like, it's like
you're the neighborhood expert.
Correct. I mean, because I am
about the businesses, about the market, you're selling houses in the market, the people, the school. Like, that's what works, right?
Yeah.
And sending out a postcard every single month and that's it doesn't make you the neighborhood expert.
Correct.
Right? And it doesn't give you the details that you really need to be the knowledgeable go-to person, right? So I think that that's huge. And again, like the fact that you can stay on it and keep doing it every year and doing this and building it, now you're adding into that database. So when the person in the grocery store says, hey, Lisa, what's up? Do you know who that person is?
Majority of the time I do.
But then are you like, oh, I need to write that down to put them in the date? How do you remember that? You're in the grocery store. You're just pulling out your CRM on your phone and putting it in right there?
That would be smart. I don't. I send myself a text message.
I thought you were going to say you do. I'm like,
I do have it on my phone, but that is not what I do.
Yeah.
So I just send myself a text and then I check it do it later. So yeah, but I got purposeful, and then I also got purposeful with the Brentwood community page of adding friending. Like, I'm not going to go on Facebook and friend a bunch of realtors. Like, I've gotten very good the past year at the unfriend or unfollow button, and really focusing on finding people that are in Brentwood that are going to be people that I need to know that need to know me.
Yeah.
And adding those people as friends.
So you're unfriending the 900 realtors that were your friends, right? Because they're not going to give you business, right?
Yes.
And then you've added in 900 friends from Brentwood, because now when they see your post and all the things, then okay, I like it. And you got the mailers, and you have the business spotlight, all of it. And it's working.
Yes.
It's wonderful. Okay, so now we've ran through your schedule, we've run through training, we've talked about geographic farming, and all three of those things you do at a very high level, very disciplined, very structured.
Yep.
Is there anything else that you would add that you just follow? This is the play. This is what I do. This is what it looks like.
I mean, that's pretty much it. Like even that's it. That's it.
No big deal.
I just make it. It's kind of like when you teach preschool. Like, you make every single day the same for little kids because little kids like routine. I'm like a little kid ultimately. Like, adults are like the same thing. You want a schedule. You want a routine. You want to know what's coming. It's when you have those unexpected that people get all wonky and things get out of whack.
You just made me think of the quote that I've heard from Gary Keller, which is success is boring.
Yeah, it is.
Right. Like what you just described is essentially you want your day to be boring.
Yeah, I do.
I mean, so to speak, right? You don't have to think about what you have to do. I mean, it's exciting because of what's happening with your clients and deals and those things, but like the actual activities and what your day...
It's exhausting thinking of all those creative things to do. And that's why, like, also leaning into the leverage is a big piece. Like, I don't spend my time thinking of like what my Facebook posts are going to get creative about. Like, I am leveraging Rachel on our team for marketing to design all of those things. Because if I were to do it, I realistically, I could do it.
Yeah.
It's going to take me triple the amount of time. However, I know my time is better spent talking to people and reaching out to them and negotiating contracts and doing all of those things. And it's just a smarter way of working.
So my goal with this interview today was really for people who are listening to this to understand that if you have a system, you have a plan like you do, right, and you stick with it and you stay disciplined, you stay consistent, how much more business can one do?
Oh, yeah.
Right? So many agents out there just do deals, and when you ask them, like, well, where'd you get your business from? I don't really know.
Yeah.
Well, how did you get it? I don't. Well, well, how many people are in your database? I don't know. I don't have a database.
Yeah.
Well, do you do events? No. Man, how did you sell 15 houses last year? I don't really know. Right? It's kind of that general response you get sometimes, and you're like, well, that's crazy. Like, A, good for you. You sold that many houses, and you don't know how you got it.
Yeah.
But B, I think about it, somebody like you and think like, man, if you then did just one of these things, let's say, and you just followed the schedule consistently, right? Could you double your business? Could you go from 15 to 30?
Yeah.
Right. And then you just keep doing it consistently. And then a 30 turns into 40, and then a 40 turns into 50.
Yeah.
And you didn't change anything, right?
No.
Other than I just got very consistent and I stopped just going all over
Yeah.
the place. And some days I did lead gen, some days I didn't do it. Sometimes I decided to door knock, sometimes I didn't. Whatever it is, right? It's sticking to it. What would you say is like your number one source of business for you?
For me, it's going to be my sphere.
Okay. And so working that consistently over and over again is what's gotten you the business.
Yes. And you
way
also
it
have to
has.
remember most of my sphere, like 75%, 75 to 80% of my sphere is in Brentwood. So it's like it naturally makes sense to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wonderful. Any other advice for agents if I'm looking to grow my business? And, you know, I understand like consistency, great, but you know, what is it, anything else that you would want to share that you want somebody, if they were trying to figure out how to grow their business, what do they need to know?
Use your CRM. Like, really use it. Like,
What do you mean,
and not as a
really use it?
Rolodex.
Okay.
Like, that's.
Tell me more.
Like, it's not just a bunch of phone numbers. Like, you can't just send emails or send text messages and it be your only method of communication with people. You get to take it to different levels. Like, you need to make sure that some of your touches are potentially Facebook messages. Or commenting or taking that offline. Like, I think of my birthday was last week. I had gazillions of Facebook messages, like over 200. I had...
How many of those did you turn into deals? No, I was kidding.
But no, here's where I was going, because I had like 200 messages on Facebook, and one, like a bunch of people just like click the button and it was an auto populate, and like you can see it when you respond to it. So like it was like all the same message over and over again.
Yeah.
And then I had like 20 texts and I had 2 phone calls. Like, those 2 phone calls meant a lot to me because those people took it an extra step of physically calling and reaching out to me. So that's the kind of thing that, like, yes, we've got technology. Yes, we've got the social media and all the things. It gets down to what's your... It's going to sound hokey, but it gets down to the relationship. It's the thing that we always talk about.
But that's what's setting you apart, right? You're picking up the phone and then calling them,
Right.
as opposed to just a generic post on Facebook, right?
Correct. And people
that's-
laugh because I'll do birthday video texts.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. And so when I do them, I get a good, like, I'll get that back from people.
That's fun.
Because they're...
That's a great tip right there.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. So use your CRM and don't just use it as a Rolodex, but actually
Correct.
use it. So also that would include like auto plans or
Yes.
tasks or campaigns or
Yes.
whatever you have in your system, but it's utilizing that. Would you say that automation that's in there for those things has really helped?
Yeah. And if you don't have an event or something going on, think of like 2 or 3 things that you could talk about every month. So make it where it's like, okay, it's March. Okay, do your people need somebody to clean up the leaves from the winter time in their yard? Do they need somebody to check their air conditioner prior to the AC getting, like, because the HVAC companies are going to get crazy pretty soon with AC checks? Do they need somebody to come and like start power washing the outside of their yard, like their house, like those type of things? Think of those, and that can be the reason for your call. Or it can even be like, hey, who should I add to my list? Like, I'm looking for a stellar power washer. Who should I add to that?
Great tip, because again, so many people then don't make the calls because they don't know what to say. So that's wonderful. So this has been amazing. We have one last question for you before we wrap today. I always like to ask the agents that I interview, what is the funniest thing that's happened to you in your 10 years of realtoring? What's the funniest thing that you want to share with the audience?
The funniest thing. So when I was showing,
It's already funny, but I haven't told the story yet.
Yeah, it's not funny. I was showing houses, 7 or 8 years ago, and we were just going through. It was a normal house. It was normal showing. Everything was fine. And I went to, it was in St. Charles County, Jim Stopping Grounds, and I opened the door to the closet, and I screamed because looking right back at me was a like life-size cutout of Justin Bieber.
Nice. So do you scare your clients?
They also screamed. They're like, "What's wrong?" And then they looked and they were like, "Oh my gosh, this is hilarious."
So some homeowner shoved a Justin Bieber in the closet.
Yes.
And scared the tar out of you.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've always found like sometimes like you'll walk into people's basements, especially their unfinished portion of the basements. Like I now find myself reminding people to like make sure that space is tidy because like people, especially in the fall, they'll leave their Halloween decorations out. So like you'll walk in and you'll see a skeleton or like the scream face and it's like, oh, that, because if you don't have lights on and then you flick the lights on, it scares the crap at you.
Nice. Good stuff. Well, thanks, Lisa. Really appreciate your time today. This has been a wonderful podcast and a lot of amazing nuggets. Congrats on all your success.
Thanks.
And looking forward to having you back on when you've hit, I don't know, 500, 700. Sure. I don't know, wherever you're going to go next, right?
Sure.
Thanks again. And everybody out there, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And stay tuned for our next episode. We'll see you later.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Realty Resilience. Be sure to join our free Realty Resilience Facebook group, where real estate professionals connect, share strategies, and access resources. You can also follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more insights. And remember, we release new episodes every 2 weeks. See you next time.